the problem now is that, like, and I get Terry, the biggest problem now is that football was a lot, I would say, I don't want to say slower, but more like it's not, the intensity is not as high before, like now. So the distances players are covering now is probably like times 2 or times 1.5 of what them Terry and Co used to cover. So they, in those days, you could play with injury and it may not be a lot of issue. But now, if one player in your team is playing with injury and cannot match that intensity, it's going to expose the whole team. So intensity is higher now. The games are now like do or die now. In those other days, in the 90s and the 2000 era, the game was a lot more, there's less intensity. And also, there are games that you go to that you don't have to be fit to win. You are going to Burnley. You know that even if you don't play, they're already afraid of Terry, Lampard, Hazard. Now, Burnley now is not afraid of anybody in Chelsea. They come like this, they can get 3 points. So you have to play at more like the same intensity for every single game you play. Look at Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt in the Champions before, those are teams that they used to do so here. Now, Bodo Glimt now is a team that you're going to play now. You have to be at the top of your game or else you'll be disgraced. So, and so its intensity has really gone up. The distances that players are covering is outrageous compared to before.
One of those things of old pros. When old pros talk sometimes, they always forget that it's different eras that they're talking about. So that's the exact point I wanted to raise. The way Tunde said it too is the intensity of the game is different. I think a lot of teams now are fatigued, especially teams that played in Europe. There are some players that are looking very fatigued. I think Trossard is fatigued. I think Zubimendi is very likely fatigued. Chelsea too have players that are fatigued. I think because of that intensity, that's why Newcastle, for example, can go to Karabakh and score 10 goals or how many goals they scored across 2 legs, but come to the EPL and Everton are using them to catch crews and bruising them up and down. So I think the intensity of the game is higher. There are players that are fatigued, and that's what we should be thinking about. It's not the number of games. I think it's just the intensity of the game has gone up, which is making the fatigue more obvious much earlier in the season than it used to be. Normally, this kind of time is probably like April that you start seeing players really tired, not really wanting to move that much again, unless you're about to be ready. You're fighting relegation, or you're fighting top 4, or you're fighting for this thing, or else other players will just be chilling. But like Tunde said earlier, Crystal Palace looks as if they're already chilling because they know that there's nothing else to play for. There are some clubs that are like that. They are tired much earlier in the season than when they usually used to be.
Yeah. Joseph, you have anything to say to this?
I mean, I think the players of nowadays are not as mentally strong as those players. We still have some players these days that will play through injury, like, Ramos, Carvajal, probably. But these clubs too, they don't want these players to play through injuries, so it doesn't really help. I mean, we don't even know. There might be times where some players are happy to play through injuries, and the club will say, oh, because from what we've seen with Chelsea, how they are saying the medical team has the final say. So, if they are saying that ahead of the player, then at the end of the day, it's the player that knows his body. If the player feels like he can play, regardless of what the tests are saying, he probably can play. And if the medical team are saying no, then it makes it difficult to know who is really willing to play or not. It's just the way the game has changed.